This is another tutorial from M2E Chicago Design Studios. Today we're going to be looking at WPC Munster on our testing server. Specifically, we're going to look at how the home page is designed. In order to do that, I want you to pay close attention. We're going to start from the top to the bottom. I want you to pay close attention here to the menu bar. We'll take a look at menu bars, correcting menu, moving menu items, and talk about that a little bit. We're going to talk about how to change images on the slider. I'm going to show you how to edit this service, these titles here, along with the content for the Times and Contemporary service information. I'm going to discuss where we're getting these events from and where we're getting these events from. I'm also going to discuss what I have called here our staff bios or our staff biographies, discuss how we got those there. And I'm going to discuss our latest sermon roll. Then we're going to move on down to our recent news feed, which includes a series of posts, and we're going to change these feeds around. In order to get started, what I'm going to do is sort of minimize this screen. Now it's not totally minimized, right? All as we've really done is move the screen over here to the right-hand side. Now, in order to sort of see how all of this comes together, I'm going to need to log into the website. In order to successfully log in, I'm going to go to Life at WPC and Support. I'm going to click on Login. I'm going to put my username and my password. For those of you who don't have a username and password and are viewing this tutorial, please refer to some of our previous tutorials, which you can see above here. And or if you haven't already, please fill out the member login form. One of our staff members will take a close look at our membership directory and compare that with your role in the church and see if you are eligible to become an active member of the tech and web development team. And by utilizing this form, you will better and more successfully be able to log in and make edits and do some of the stuff we're going to be talking about in these tutorials. So go ahead and fill that out. Let's get back to the home page really quick so we can go through this from top to bottom. The first thing I want to point out are what we call a page. Now, as you can see up here, we're on the home page. If I click this edit button right here, it's going to open up a window which I've already opened up. And it may not open it up right next to yours. It may switch from this screen and open it up, but this is what that page template window looks like. So let me just let me do this again. I'll close this. I'm going to hold the control key and left click, and it's going to open a page. I'm just going to slide that page right over, and now I have the page that I'm editing along with the home page. One of the issues I'm having here is obviously I've got some issues here on the right hand side, the publish icon, the page attributes, featured image. I sort of want those things to be accessible to me in this view, so I'm going to change the number of columns. I'm also going to get rid of a few things here that I'm not going to need. I don't need to know the author, the slugs. I don't need an excerpt. I don't need anything on discussions, custom fields, quick. I'll get rid of those. Now, as you can see, I have what we would call a one-page view. I'm going to minimize some of these. I'll talk about each of these sections in turn. First thing to look at is what we call the title of the page. The title of our homepage is called Main. Why is that relevant? Well, if I click right over here on the Page tab, I can view all of the pages that we've created up until this point. Music ministry, my account page, the pastor's page, site map, support, video, worship, WP staff, and so on and so forth. Our home page is located here in Main. I'm going to click this edit button, and this is going to let me edit that page. That button edit on the back end there is the same as clicking the edit button here. And remember, the only way to get this bar is to be logged in. Now that we know where this page is located, first thing I want to draw your attention to is the menu. The menu usually and strictly consists of pages. So all of the pages here are in some way, shape, or form, if we so choose, will be part of this menu bar right here on the right hand side. But where do we find the menu bar and how do we get it updated? If we go down here on the right hand side, we'll see something called Appearances. Appearances is nice. It allows you to do some theme modifications, widgets. For all intensive purposes, I want you to focus here on menus. Let's click on the menu item. I want to draw your attention while this is loading here over to the right. Notice that we have an About Us page that sits by itself. And notice that that About Us page is right here. If we click on Ministries, though, we get this curious rollover effect that occurs. And the way that that's created, as a matter of fact, is by taking these items, holding it, clicking it with the left click, and dragging it either outward or bringing it down underneath an item. As an example, if I would take this About Us page and move it under Ministries and click Save Menu, I can actually come right over here and update that screen. When I do, what you'll notice is that the About Us menu is now under Ministries. Notice how a simple point and click and movement can realign and adjust all of the menus on the website. Let's suppose you created a page, or there's already an existing page, and you would like to add that page to the menu somewhere. You can add pages, products, events, links, categories, product tags, event categories, and so on and so forth. And we can add these in anywhere that we would like here. For instance, under events, I might want to do, one of the categories that seems to be big is staff meetings. Maybe I want to have that fall under calendar. So I'll click Add to Menu, and I'll slide down to the bottom. I'm going to grab this item, and I'm just going to come straight up here to the top and drop it under calendars. Now once I save that menu, and I watch for the refresh, I come back over now, refresh the home page, and as you can see, give it just a second, now we have staff meetings. Now in this case, we used a specific event called staff meeting. But in other cases, we can use entire categories and other information. We can create pages in which the calendar is strictly there to show a specific type of feed. For all purposes, now let's get rid of that item. We're going to remove that staff meeting. We'll click Menu. And now that we've saved menu, we'll come over here and refresh the home page. And what you'll notice is that we have the calendar feedback again without the staff submenu item. And this is our calendar feed. Let's go back to the home page by clicking the Real Church icon, which will later become the WPC Munster logo. Now that we've seen how to basically update the menu at the very top, I want to draw your attention to this slider and how we add images here. In order to change the menu item, we saw we had to go to Appearance and Menu Item. That's because the menu is on every page and all menu items are created and adjusted through the Appearance panel. However, if we want to change anything on the home page, we have to go to the Pages tab or the Pages panel. Let's click on Pages. And we're going to select Main because we know that this is the main page of the website. Once here, we'll notice that there are a couple of things. There's the title, which is the main, which allows us to identify that this is the main page of the website. The permalink, or the URL, indicating exactly where this page is linked to. We also have what we call a visual mode, which allows us to take a visual look and operates a lot like a text document or a Microsoft Word document, where you can select text, you can unthink things, you can give it and italicize it, You can add strike-throughs, or you can add a bullet point. For our purposes, we're going to H2 tag. Oh, and we have a little issue. So whenever you have issues like that, we can use the text. And we'll notice the reason we have an issue here is because, for whatever reason, we have traditional service. Traditional service should be in the box, but it should be given an H2 tag. So we're just going to put the HTML right in there. Go back to visual mode, and there we go. First thing I want to draw your attention to is the fact that this content here, traditional service and contemporary service, does not actually look the same as the way we've created here in this box. The reason for that is there is a special language called CSS, or Cascading Style Sheets, that are implementing a variety of different code that gives it this elegant design, along with the border background, the change in the fonts. Our responsibility is to provide the correct code here in this window and also in the page options window. Once we have done that, then we can update the page. You'll also notice that the traditional services is taking up one half of the page, and the contemporary service is taking up another half of the page. As I shrink it closed, you'll notice those spaces grow a little bit smaller and eventually fold over on top of each other. What we've done here is created something called a shortcode. You can implement this shortcode quite simply by adding a space and selecting this small icon here, which is the columns shortcode. By clicking the column shortcode, what you'll notice is that you have a 1/4 indicator along with a place where you can add some content. You can change this to a variety of different numbers. Think of the web page as divided into 4 parts, or 2 parts, or 3 parts. We can have a 1/3 design where we have traditional service, traditional contemporary, and a contemporary service, and divide it. We have what we're seeing here is 1/2 and 1/2. What we're seeing here is 1/4. What we're seeing here is 1/2. The way we're building the traditional services, we're using the 1/2, but we could easily switch this and make this 1/3 and make this 1/3. Let's take a look at what that would look like if we did that, for instance. Now, in order to see those changes, we're going to click the update button on our page, because that's the way you have to do it in order to get that content to register. I'm going to click on the refresh button. Notice how the content is now dramatically shifted. It is awaiting for another floating content here for the 3rd section. If we would like, we can adjust those columns back quite simply by adding a 2 and update. Once we've updated, we can update the home page, and you notice things go back to normal. Excellent. So now you've seen how to do some very basic edits when it comes to the columns. The real question is, how does the rest of this content get here? Well, in this particular theme implementation, the Real Church, what we have is something called the Page Options panel. And you'll notice a couple of things. You'll notice that in the Page Options panel, we have the ability to add a wide variety of items, from a blog, an accordion, contact form, column, column service, content, dividers, events, galleries, message boxes, and so on and so forth. For the purposes of this tutorial, we'll be covering just the boxes that appear here on the home page and show you what those look like in real life. The way we are actually building the home page is the first thing we did was we inserted a title item, or a title item. We came here, we selected title, and we clicked add item. Notice that the item added itself with a 1/4 in a 1/4 screen dimension. What I did was moved it up, and I clicked this small plus sign to make that title span the full width of the page. I then went here to edit, and I edited the header title and typed in services. After services, I applied what we call a bottom margin. Now, a bottom margin is quite simply, if I can show you just briefly, a bottom margin is nothing more than that small orange line at the bottom, right here. What that bottom margin does is it pushes down the content underneath it to provide this open space that we see. We can type a 0 margin in here, or we can give it a margin of, say, 10. Let's click Done. What I'm going to do now is see what I've created by opening the publishing panel and clicking Update. I should call it the publishing toggle box. Let's refresh the home page and see what changes we've made. Notice what we have here. We've added another title called Services. How is that? Well, if you notice, we have two titles here, and we'll have to delete one if we're not going to create a series of redundancies. Let's do that now by selecting this small red icon and confirming the deletion. Once we've done that, that title, once we've updated the page and refreshed, we'll notice that only one title is there now. The real question that you might be asking yourself is, how in the world is it that the title is on top of the traditional service and contemporary service when in the actual design view the traditional and contemporary services are on top and the title is in below? The key answer lies in this small box here called Content. Let's take a look at this one more closely. If I select the Please Select Item box and I go to Content and I add that item, what we are essentially doing is placing the content that is actually in this box somewhere into our design. In this particular case, what I have done is I've added it underneath the title. That's why the title is above the content. By creating this content box, what we are essentially saying is, hey, Mr. WordPress, if you could do me a favor, take all of the content that's in this white box above me and insert it into here so that I can make it look a little more professional. Here's the big trick. Once you've created the contents box and placed it wherever you want, we can edit it and give it a title and a bottom margin if we'd want. In this case, we didn't give it a header title because we created a title already called Services. But here's the catch. If you include the content box and you save it, you also must make sure that Show Page Content is set to No. If you don't have it set to No, here's what will happen. By default, Show Page Content is set to Yes. And if I supply the content underneath the title and don't turn that to No, guess what will happen? You guessed it, duplicate content. Take a look. By setting that element down here, the Show Page Content to No, I'm telling it that I don't want to duplicate that content that was in there. Let's set that back to No. Notice our content is under the title. What's happening is the content up here is being put down here. We're hiding the content here now. Little complicated workflow here, but this is a great way to take the page content or basic typing that you would put in your body content and place it then anywhere in a design. Let's refresh and watch that duplicated content go away. There you go. Now you know how we got the title and the service times in line with each other. What is this thing called Event? Well, there are actually two tabs here, Events and Event. Events are linked to our Google Calendar. We use a plugin called Timely, and if I hold the Control key and left click, it'll take me to the Timely calendar. The Timely calendar is filled with events that are being input through a mobile phone devices and online through a Google Calendar. We can view when employees are going to be off, when there are going to be youth rallies, and we can click in and see more details on the women's group luncheon. This particular event calendar relates specifically to the Events tab. Heading back to the home page now, let me scroll down. Just underneath, however, the content, you'll notice that there's no plural. It says event. The events category or tab feature here is actually where we want to do special events or events that we want to highlight on the home page or somewhere else with a picture and some further information. Let's click on one of the events. Notice the event is a lot different. It provides a map to the special event location, a time, a date, possibly a cost and a price. As a matter of fact, we could even integrate e-commerce here, and we could charge a small fee where people could register directly online, but that'll have to wait for another tutorial. The key here is to remember that if I select event, what I'm actually doing is I'm telling the home page that I want to place a series of events on my page. Let's edit it and take a closer look. If I come in here to the events, I'll notice that I have a couple of event types. I can change it to a medium thumbnail, a grid, or a carousel. As you can see here, right now we have a carousel. How a carousel works is whenever you add a new or recent event, this carousel will automatically shift to the right and the newest event will be here on the left. You could choose the event size. You can choose it to have 4 across, or 1/4 of the, or each event will take up 1/4 of the screen. Each event will take up 1/3 of the screen across, or each event will take up half of the screen across. You guessed it, that second number indicates how many posts or event posts are going to display. One of the unique characteristics of WordPress is its ability to utilize categories. A category is just a way of, you guessed it, categorizing content or information. Now if I went to events, you'll notice I can create event categories. I could create a wide variety of event categories. I could create event categories for the youth group and have a whole page displayed just for youth group events. Or I could create a category for mission trips and have a whole page dedicated to events that are related specifically to the mission. If I had created those categories, I would be able to select here which events I want to display on the home page. If I select all, it will display all event categories with the most recent to the left. I can then ask it how many I would like to fetch. In this case, I want it to fetch 9. When we're in, this actually only works if you're in the grid module or the thumbnail. Carousel only displays right across the screen. Pagination will only appear when the number of selected pages is greater than the number of fetched items in one page. In this case, because we only have 4 events that are under the events category, we won't get pagination. Pagination is the ability to page through, just like we do here with our staff members, to view more events. We can order them by date, start date, in this case, when does the date start? The title, or we can do it randomly. Sometimes you want to organize things in alphabetical order, but mostly you'll sort by date. And we can choose descending or ascending. Do we want it to descend from the earliest date, or do we want it to ascend from the most recent date that has passed, or the last most date? Show past events. We can select no or yes, and we can select that bottom margin. Essentially, what the events item does is the events allows us to add a list, or what we call a blog roll, in this case a carousel of events. What is the toggle box? Well, in this, let's edit this really quick. Take a look at what we have in here. A toggle box is basically a box that you would click, and it will toggle or open information below it. In this case, we wanted to showcase an agenda. This particular agenda showcases a weekly calendar. This calendar is pulled from, you've guessed it, our events list from our Timely calendar, which is connected to our Google and Facebook calendars. It is not connected to event. That's why we placed it in a toggle box. We may want to showcase a couple of upcoming events or past events with pictures and information, but we may also want to provide a list of other events such as preschool start times and other things that aren't related directly to the church in our events calendar here. You'll notice that under the tab text for the content that I'm going to have in this particular toggle box, I've included something called a shortcode. This particular shortcode accesses the Timely Calendar database, and it displays at what we call a calendar agenda. As you can see, when I click the button, it displays. How did I get that, you might ask? Well, as a matter of fact, we can do a couple of things. If we come over here to events, now I'm going to hold the control key and left click. You can do that too, and it's going to open another tab for me. That way we can save the current tab. Once we click events, what you'll notice is we can come in here and we can go to settings, theme options, calendar theme, feeds, event tags, and event categories. Let's go to settings. Under the settings tab, there's a couple of things we can do. If I remember correctly, I believe it's under advanced settings. No, let's go to theme options. Let's go to agenda. No, that's not it either. Calendar feeds, is this it? Oh wow, I have just forgotten exactly. These are the feeds where we've updated them. And we actually have a little help guide down here. Let me make sure we're on the right page. We'll do this in more detail later. But what we'll be able to do is you'll be able to come in here and you'll be able to actually create a small, here we go. That's why I couldn't find it. It's buried right here at the bottom under the settings, alternative methods to embed a calendar. And what we can do is we can filter by a specific event. We can filter and do comma separated event categories. We can do daily, weekly, monthly, poster board, or agenda views. And what I did was I just copied this right here, which is our agenda view, and I came back to the home page under the toggle box, and I paste that right in there. Not so bad, huh? Pretty easy. And I clicked done. That's how we got the toggle box in there with the Timely calendar installed. Now we could change that, of course. We could come in and decide from our advanced methods that we would like a daily view. And we could come in and copy that. Or create our own, copy and paste that, click done, and update the page. Once updated, those changes become live. Let's take a look at how we created our staff and our sermons now. What we did here is we selected something called the pastor item. Now, what's unique about the pastor item is it has its own tab over here, pastor tab. And what we'll do is I'm going to hold that control key again. I'm going to open that up and show you what that looks like. Now, the pastor tab is nothing more than what I'm calling our staff. Because, at Westminster, we really don't have a whole lot of pastors, but we have a heck of a lot of staff who are really important and supportive in the effort of keeping information up to date and connecting people in the church with what's going on in the community. And what we'd like to do is add a couple of staff members. So we're going to use this pastor tab right here, and we can just add a new pastor or add a new person. We can add my bio. We'll have to make sure we select the personal category pastor widget, my position, give a short excerpt, And we could add some information and we can publish that. Now here's the unique thing. Anytime I create a pastor name, what will happen here is you'll notice that when I refresh the home page, it will automatically update the home page. Well, how does that happen, you ask? Is it actually possible? How is it possible that that data is dynamically being populated? Let's go back to the home page and I'll show you the trick here. If we click this edit button, you'll notice that I have a carousel, but I've chosen a pastor category called pastor widgets. And when I saved that data and I selected the pastor category, it already knew to synchronize that with the home page and provided that data automatically. Isn't that neat? All you have to do is create your staff bios in here, choose this category and push publish, and it will automatically update the home page. You won't have to worry about it. And we do the same with sermons. We would come over here to sermon. Oh, let me hold that control key again. We'll open up sermons. And right here you'll notice we have our 3 sermons. We could add a new sermon. And here's the key. Let's take a look at the home page again and open up sermons. And here's what we'll notice. In here we have something called sermon type is sermon widget. And we're choosing all categories of sermons. So no matter what sermon is published, it's going to automatically populate on the home page. You've guessed it, we also have something called a blog. Now, we don't have a special tab over here for blog, but where we update blogs is in something called posts. And I took this up in the difference between pages and posts, which is essentially that posts allow people or site visitors externally to input content or communicate with us from the outside. Let's take a look at what that might look like. And in this particular blog, let's take a look at that blog. We selected to have one medium. Now I may want to change that, and I think I will. I think I want 1, 2, 3, 4 across. I want the category to be blog. I want to show the thumbnail right here. Yes, I do. Do I want a length of excerpt? Length of excerpt is set to 285. Yeah, that's enough information, I think. And you'll notice as soon as it gets over the 285 character mark, it automatically adds that triple dot. Show full blog content. No, I don't want to do that because then it would be too much information on a page. Pagination, no. Order by date, descending, and I'll put a little margin at the bottom right here, 60 margin. So right now all I changed was how the blog is going to look. The key here is that I chose a category called blog, and we're going to take a look at that. Let's update that really quick and see how that change did. Let's update the home page. Wow, that looks much better. I like that. Recent news, nice and small on the bottom, 1/4 across, right? No issues there. Perfect. Well, how do I update the recent news blog? Well, one of the things you need to pay attention to is what the category for blog was. Now that category was blog, right? So let's go into posts. I'm going to hold that control key and I'm going to left click again. That's my index finger. And I'm going to create a new post just for fun. Once I create a new post, I'm going to give it a title, and it could be, maybe we could do recent news, Jana got married. We want to thank everybody for attending the wedding ceremony. Blah, 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 blah. Want to make sure we select the blog category because we know that the home page, right, blog is drawing from that particular category in the post. We could add a tag like marriage. And another thing we might want to do, let's go to post options. Here we can add some additional post options, which you don't really have to worry about so much. The one thing you will have to worry about here is this image right here. You have to select a thumbnail, right? There's a couple things you can do. You select that thumbnail right here, if I remember correctly. Now we can select it from several locations, and you can add media like this all over the website. You can select from the media library, which is a whole host of all the different types of images and content that we have uploaded directly to the server, right? Or you can select from your computer, from a file that you have stored. Now when you're in the media library, you can search for a specific item. You can search for anything that was, that was from March. Or you can search for video, search for media, and you can see now these are all the different images that have media. Now we can select any one of those by simply clicking show. And we're going to say, we don't want this to be huge, so we'll click medium and we'll click insert into post. Now you have to click insert into post, and when you do this, what will happen is you'll see the selected image here. Once we've done that, we can click publish. And just as we did with our staff page and we can do with our sermons, as long as we've selected the correct category, that information is going to show up on the page. Let's take a look at that. And there we go. Let's click on Jana Got Married. And look at where our image is. Notice that when we selected the upload image here on the page, it showed up on the page, right? But what we really wanted it to do was we wanted to show up like the rest of these images. Well, heck, what happened? The key here is to select what we call the featured image. And the featured image is what's featured across the website, and then the internal image is something that you upload separately. So we can select the featured image here. We'll update that. Once we've updated that post, we'll click OK. And here's what you'll notice. Now we have a featured image alongside Jana Got Married. So there it is. Some of the basic content on our WordPress site that we can edit: menu items, services and times, titles, how to include an event carousel, also how to use shortcodes and a toggle box to include a calendar, how to update staff information on the home page, how to include sermons, and how to attach media to posts, which you can also attach to sermons and other content. Thanks for listening.